Hi, everybody. Welcome to the next live program from the Jim and Linda Lee Planetarium. My name is Eric Edelman, and I'll be guiding you through your monthly night sky, this one being October, as it's visible here in Prescott, Arizona. So this is all about sort of what events, what astronomical events are going to be happening, what things are visible from planets to the moon to stars, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun exploring that here tonight with also considering the season, maybe a little bit of a spooky bend. Maybe we'll have some spooks throughout. No jump scares, I promise, but just maybe some spooky things that we'll explore. And if it seems like we're reaching, well, we're always reaching for the stars. So let's put it that way. And just to start us off, we're going to start with a little spooky trick. So I'm actually going to make a show disappear. Yes, so I am here. This is actually a two-person program right here tonight, as it usually is when we do a live stream. I'm presenting the show. I'm pushing some buttons to make some things appear. And then in the back studio, we have our student tech from Embry Riddle, Devin, who's going to be monitoring the stream, making sure everything's going okay. And Devin is going to be helping me with this trick here. I would ask her that she will make the Prescott September Night Sky Show disappear from our YouTube lineup. So if you look at our YouTube videos, the ones that we've done, if we've done a live stream, after that live stream, the video will be available to view. No more for Prescott September Night Sky. The reason for that is that we're going to only have the latest monthly night sky series show up and available for you to see, because otherwise, if you looked at like the Prescott August night sky show and it was in February, you might be a bit confused because the information we were giving you would now be a little bit out of date. So you're only going to be able to see the most recent, fresh, right, hot off the presses information for your night sky viewing needs. And so now if you check and you want to find the Prescott September night sky, it's not going to be anymore. It's disappeared. And that's how it's always going to be. This October night sky, you can see it live if you're watching us with us. If you're watching this with us, thank you for joining live. But you do also have a few weeks more to watch, rewatch as you please before the November night sky comes to make the October night sky show disappear. But all right, so we're going to be exploring the night sky with Digistar 6 from Evans and Sutherland. A big thank you to them, as always, for their program. And well, now let's get into it. So this right here, just to give you your bearings, is the night sky looking in the southerly direction. So if you had out a compass and you followed to look south, then you were going to be looking at this group of stars in the early evening. So this is a little bit after 8 o'clock. So there's a few different things that we can see, a few different things that we can explore. One of the things that is not quite as visible, one of the things that we're not going to be able to see, is the moon. So the moon, when it gets dark, is going to be setting very closely with the sun today because it's very close to new. So that means that the side of it facing us is not getting the sun's light. It's not going to look illuminated to us because it's in between us and the sun. That's going to be happening tomorrow is when we're going to be experiencing the new moon, so we're not going to be able to see it. But what is great about this is that after the new moon, we have a couple more weeks till we get a full moon. And this full moon that is coming up is going to be happening on October 31st. We're going to get a Halloween full moon. I think that's pretty exciting. Not only that, it's going to be what we call a blue moon. Now, there are a few definitions for blue moon. Once in a blue moon, it's this phrase we use to say something doesn't occur all that often. It's a little bit of a rare, exciting occurrence. A blue moon, with the definition we're using today, is that a moon is full. We get a full moon twice in 1 month. And so the full moon happening on October 31st on Halloween is going to be blue. It's going to be the second full moon in October, with the first one being that harvest moon that happened on October 1st. And I can actually show you a great NASA visual that is emphasizing this feature. Now, one of the important points of this full moon, this blue moon on Halloween, is that if you ever get a full moon on Halloween, it is also inevitably going to be blue. You cannot get a full moon on Halloween without it being the second full moon in the month of October. And the reason has to do with how long it takes for the moon to go through its phases. It's different views of illumination as we see them from planet Earth. And so we just saw from NASA Visualization Studios group the phases as they're going to be occurring through October as they have. I'm going to run that video one more time for us to be able to see that very first day of October, we had the full moon that we call colloquially the harvest moon. And then beyond that, the moon started to wane. We started to see less and less of the face of the moon until we got roughly to today, where there's barely a sliver left. And then tomorrow, we're going to get that view right there, the new moon. Then it's going to be coming back to us, and we get the blue full moon on October 31st. There's 29 and a half days to get from one full moon to the next. And so since October has 31 days, we can never have a full moon on the 31st without having one earlier in the month, just because of how much time has to pass by. So you always get a full blue moon if you get a full moon on Halloween, the last time being 19 years ago in 2001. So this is a interestingly rare occasion. It happens sometimes, but not too often. And, the downside is that, well, normally if we had a full moon on Halloween, we could have some great time trick-or-treating, the light illuminating our way. But this year, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult due to global circumstances. Regardless of the global circumstances, though, the moon doesn't care. It's going to stay full up in that sky on the 31st. So we have that interestingly spooky moon. And then beyond that, we do have the planets. So the planets haven't moved a lot since the last show, but I will talk a little bit about where they are, where you can find them. So we're seeing, as we're looking at this southerly night sky, I'll bring back up those cardinal markers, is we can see there are two planets in great full view, right hanging out over here. They're right next to the constellation of Sagittarius, the Archer. And these are our two gas giants. We have Jupiter being the closest to Sagittarius, and then following it, we have Saturn, the ringed jewel of the solar system. So you have a pair of planets right next door to each other, and they're up very early in the night, and they're going to set relatively early as well. So you want to get them in the early evening if you plan to spot them during the night. Then beyond Jupiter and Saturn, we have a very, very distant planet. Let me just put on all the labels so you can see where they are. There's Neptune, which, unless you are a very, very talented observer, have a lot of experience, maybe have a telescope handy, you're going to have trouble with that one. So we're not going to focus too much on that. But if we head further east, that's where we're going to see some of the planets that are rising around this time of night. So let's see what's going on over there. We have Mars and Uranus. So Mars is great. It recently had its opposition. It was recently the brightest it's going to be this year. So the Earth essentially got in between Mars and the Sun. That means it's the closest it's going to get to Mars that year. And the closer you get to an object, the brighter it's going to be. So Mars right now looks wonderfully bright. It is beautifully red. It is a great object to find in our solar system right now. And so Mars is right nearby to a prominent fall constellation. So there's a group of fish hanging out near Mars. So the Pisces constellation is there. And so normally I might, if you're trying to find a planet, point you out to a prominent constellation you can use to first find the constellation and then find the planet. In this case, well, Pisces is not the easiest one to find. It doesn't have a bunch of bright stars that are just easy to get. But Mars is bright, it's clear, it's beautiful. You're going to not have too much of a problem finding Mars. If you look east early in the evening, a little bit after 8 o'clock into 9 o'clock, you're going to see that red planet over there. And then right next door, you can find Pisces. And so maybe Mars is your way toward a fall constellation. So we see a little bit of fall here. Fall is, there's different constellations for each season, and the fall constellations are going to be the ones that are going to start to rise at the beginning of the evening and are going to set, well, very late on into the night. They're going to be the ones that are up in your evening sky in the southerly east-west direction for the most amount of time. They're going to be the stars of the season, as it were. So there's a few things that we can investigate about constellations like Pisces here tonight. So we might as well do just that. So when it comes to Pisces, there are the stars that we can connect the dots to make the constellation. But beyond that, there are what we call deep sky objects. So objects that are very much farther away than the stars that we see, but they could be brilliantly bright, like galaxies of their own right, of exploded stars, planetary nebulae. These distant creatures that, if you have a good telescope, some very careful scientific know-how, you might be able to find. And so I thought we could look at some of the spookier deep sky objects in some of our fall constellations for this show. For Pisces, well, we're going to see a galaxy far, far away, 240 million light years away, called 3C31. But it's not a droid; it's a galaxy. I promise you. And it's one that. Well, we have a very beautiful image of it that I wanted to share with you and talk about in just a little bit of detail. So we have to head a little bit back down there to see the full view. But this is 3C31 with the credit below the image. Now, this is a galaxy that is very, very far away, and we have this view of it from the Chandra X-ray telescope, and it is showing us that there's this really bright region in the center. What that bright region is this supermassive black hole that is very, very hungry. This huge black hole that is consuming things, but not only consuming, also spitting some stuff away. So there are these relativistic jets that are zooming out into space. We're seeing one of these jets right here. And these jets are millions of light years in length. So these are these really extremely large features in the universe caused by this violently hungry supermassive black hole hundreds of millions of light years away from us. So I know I keep spouting out light years, right? Just as an aside, I just want to give you, if you're not familiar with the term or just it sounds out of this world, which it certainly is, just let me give you a few points of reference, is that it's the speed that light travels to get from point A to point B, how long that takes. So for example, for light to get from the sun to our planet Earth, it needs about 8.5 minutes. So it crosses 93 million miles in 8.5 minutes. To get from our sun to Neptune, it needs about 4 light hours. This is the fastest known speed of anything in the universe, as far as we know today. And so it is from to use that speed to measure distance is one of the ways, well, astronomers look at things. And so to get 240 million miles away, well, or million light years away, well, it takes light traveling huge amounts of distances to get millions of light years across these jets it means that it's a very large structure. Now, let's put it that way. So yes, this is this distant galaxy that is, well, making some monstrous features out there in the universe. And speaking of black holes, I know that those are a point of interest for a lot of people. That this is something that many are interested in. It's this feature that speaks of some of the biggest extremes in physics and some of uh, the biggest things that we can even imagine. This place where even light can't escape, that fastest thing in the universe. So let's explore one of these black holes that is actually somewhat close to home. So we're going to head to it's within our galaxy, but we're going to head to a black hole that's about 3,300 light years away from us. And it is, if we were to look at it from our home, we would find it in the constellation of Monoceros. And so here is that black hole itself. You know, maybe initially you might think, hey, maybe a black hole is not a lot to look at because if even light can't escape, we're not going to see anything. It's just going to be black, right? Well, the activity around it can be pretty extreme. Scientists have been studying this black hole candidate for quite a while now, and one of the things that they know is that there is this object that it considering its mass, considering what we know about its characteristics, we really don't think it's anything but a black hole. And then its partner object is a star. So it's a binary system. There's these two objects in orbit around each other. There are a lot of systems that are just not one object. There may be two or even three that are out there in the galaxy that we can see and observe. From our place on Earth, they might look like a single point of light, but there is certainly more complexity if we look a little bit deeper. So with this black hole here, because it is in this binary system, well, it's interacting with its partner star. And so that's what creates an accretion disk that we're seeing here around this black hole, this disk of material that this black hole is consuming, and some of it just circling around it. So you can consider black holes somewhat the vampires of the vampires of the galaxies of the universe. They are things that suck out the life, the energy, the material of things that are nearby. And so I say that this is one of the closest black holes to our solar system. I don't want anybody to panic. 3,300 light years is very far away indeed. We have kept a nice, safe distance away. We don't have to be worried about it. Just it is close in astronomical terms, which makes it very fun to observe and research. The closer things are, the easier it tends to be for us to be able to study them. And this is one of those objects that certainly a lot of studies have been put into. So black holes, that's a pattern that will carry a little bit through this show as we go toward a few different objects here. So we saw the planets. We saw that Mars is nearby to Pisces these days, but there's more constellations in the fall that we can explore. So right now we are looking in the northerly direction. We've landed back on Earth. I've teleported us there. I'm going to take us back to the easterly direction where these fall constellations are rising. And we're going to investigate a couple more that are in this sky. So just to reorient you, we have this beautiful red dot that is Mars, and right next door to it is the constellation of Pisces. And this reminds me, I should have said this at the beginning of the show, but for those of you that are having trouble seeing the points of light that I'm pointing out on whatever device you're using to view this show, please try and switch to the highest resolution that you possibly can. If you're looking at it in 720 or 1080p, you're probably good, but if you're a little below that, some of the smaller dots that I'm pointing out on the screen might not be visible to you. So if you have the know-how, if you know how to up the resolution on your screen, that might be a way for you to see the things that I'm talking about. I promise. I'm not just seeing things. I'm not just speaking lies. There are points of dots there on the screen. If you can't see them, try and up the resolution on which you're watching this live stream program. But yes, okay. So we have Mars and we have Pisces right next door, and then right next door to that we have Perseus, the hero, the warrior. It's another one that's maybe one of the more challenging constellations to find out there. But if you want to try and find Perseus. If you've already found Pisces, you have to head just a little bit to the left in your eastern sky there, and you'll be able to find it. Another way is if you know how to find the Pleiades, or the Seven Sisters. So here they are right here in the sky. I'm circling them with my mouse. If you head a little bit up from the Pleiades, you're going to be on your way toward Perseus. It's not the brightest stars, but there's some very interesting things that we can explore in this constellation as well. So we were talking just a little bit earlier about a black hole in a binary system, binary being two objects in orbit. I also mentioned that there could be three objects in orbit. And well, there is the case that, well, on one of the hips of Perseus here, we have one of those objects indeed. So we're actually going to fly toward it, and it is a three-star system. A three-star system that has gained a little bit of a spooky reputation, and I'll show you why as we get there. It's almost 100 light years away, and it is Al Ghul. Al Ghul, the demon star. So why do we call it the demon star? So it seems like one point of light to us, but it's actually these three unique stars. We're seeing two stars, Al Ghul A and B, are really close by to each other, and then you might have noticed Al Ghul C is sort of a little bit more distant. When it rotates back into view, I'll point it out for you again, but it's just one more distant of the three in the group. And the reason that it has a little bit of a spooky flair to it is because of how these stars change in their appearance to us. So once again, we only see one point of light, but that point of light changes in brightness. And one of the reasons is because sometimes Al Ghul A can get in front of Al Ghul B from our view, or Al Ghul B can get in front of Al Ghul A from our view. And so if one of the stars is blocking the other star from our perspective, then we're not going to see that point of light at one point of light we see that makes up those three objects, it won't look quite as bright to us because some of that light is being blocked. It's not going to be able to get to us, and that's what we call an eclipsing binary. So sometimes one of these stars is eclipsing the other, and so we're not going to overall see the system be as bright. And so these changes in brightness, this demonic flickering, is why we call it the demon star. And so that brings me to a point in that we do consider our constellations to be pretty standard, that they don't change over time, at least not on the times of human scales. But that's not quite true, because sometimes the stars in them can change just a bit. The lights that we see can change. And we were noticing that with Betelgeuse about a year back. There was that dimming of that star, and people were interested in that. Here with Al Ghul, like you can look up online, hey, when's the next time the significant star, there's going to be an eclipse of those stars that's going to happen? Maybe you can try and find Al Ghul in the sky on that night and see if it looks brighter or dimmer to you. So there can be changes in the stars or the points of light that make up multiple stars that you see from night to night. There can be changes, there can be adjustments, and the more familiar you get with the sky and the stars within it, the more you're going to be able to notice those subtle changes, right? So if you're somebody who's looking to get used to the sky, keep on looking at constellations, keep on looking at the same ones, and maybe over time you will see differences, you will see patterns, you will see that the stars are not statues that never change. There are differences that come into play. So that's Al Ghul. Al Ghul, the star within Perseus. And we have more to explore within Perseus as well. But to do that, we have to head back to our home planet. So I'm teleporting us once again back to Earth, back to home. So here we are looking once again to the south. I'm going to change us to the easterly direction again. Move us a little bit upward in the sky. And let's see here. Let's go a little bit farther up, I think. And then we're going to be able to view Perseus once again. So here is Perseus in the sky. So we have taken a look at one of the stars in Perseus. But beyond that, I also want to take note of some deep sky objects. Some more objects that if you have a really good telescope, you're able to, you know exactly where you're supposed to look. You can see some hidden treasures within this constellation. So the deep sky object that I want to talk about in particular with this show is the Perseus cluster, or a particular object within the Perseus cluster. So to see it, we're going to have to head a little bit back down. And I think this is a gorgeous image right here. We have to head a little bit more. So this is a group of galaxies far, far away from us. Once again, galaxies far, far away. And it is, once again, visible to us via the Chandra X-ray telescope. So light comes in different energies, different wavelengths. X-rays are a little bit more energetic than we can see with our eyes, but we have equipment like Chandra that can see that and translate to us images that we can interpret with our eyes. So don't consider this true color. This is something that has been colored to tell a story of the science, if that makes sense. So right here we're seeing part of the Perseus cluster, the cluster of galaxies far, far away. And then you're seeing sort of this like dusty, gassy feature, right? This Perseus cluster is hanging out within a gaseous cloud that if you put it all together, it would weigh or would have the mass of about 1 trillion suns or multiple trillions of suns. So there's this huge gaseous cloud that's surrounding these many, many galaxies. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on in it. And one of the big reasons, one of the big perpetrators is the galaxy at the center with a supermassive black hole. And so this is this thing right here. There's the supermassive black hole that's being a big bug that's just swallowing things, it's bullying things, it's pushing things around. And one example of that is this blue area right here. So there's this blue region, and scientists think it's likely that that was a galaxy that was ripped apart sort of by the gravitational torment that this supermassive black hole was causing. And you might have seen it when I overlaid my mouse on the image that, well, the image is named a certain thing because at the very center here, if you look at it closely, you might see the shape of a skull. Ooh, I told you we were going to be reaching a little bit. So you see sort of the eyes and a little bit of the teeth there. There's this spooky skull in the very, very distant edges of the cosmos as we can see it with our telescopes at home. And the chaos of the image being due to this monstrous supermassive black hole at the very center of it all. That galaxy with that supermassive black hole is NGC 172 or 1275. If you're ever wanting to look for it. Yes, lots of spooks to be had through fall if you really look hard, and that's another one of them. So beyond that, yes, we have some fall constellations, but as the night gets later, as we go deeper into the night, we're going to see parts of winter. So those are the ones that are going to start rising earlier and earlier in the night as we hit the winter season. One of those that we're hanging out right directly in front of in this view here is, well, one of the most famous ones out there, the constellation of Orion. I think it's one of the ones a lot of people, as they begin to look at the sky, they can get familiar with the most easily because it has all these great features to it. We're going to talk about Orion and introduce it for those who may not be too familiar because of an event related to Orion that's going to be happening a little bit later in October that I'll get to. So Orion here, we're seeing the constellation lines for it. If you were just looking for it in the sky, you might just see sort of an hourglass-like shape in that there are these four stars that sort of make up the picture frame of it, and then there's the little bit of a belt cinching going on of three stars in the middle there, known as Orion's belt. And so this is a constellation that has some beautiful color to it. Betelgeuse is a deep red up on the shoulder. We have Rigel as a deep blue down at the bottom. And so this is a constellation that can show you that there's color and variety to these stars. So there's lots of points of interest. It can help you figure out what direction Taurus, the bull, is in. Right above Orion, you're going to see Taurus over here in the east in the early AM. So we've gotten a little bit later in the night at this point. And so this is when you're going to see those winter constellations. So what event is going on that has to do with Orion? That is the Orionids. So a meteor shower is going to be coming up in a little bit less than a week. So late on the night of October 20th, early the morning of October 21st, that's when we are going to hit the peak of the Orionid meteor shower. That meteor shower being a time when you're going to see a lot of shooting stars, streaks of light across your sky. The reason that we call this one the Orionid is because it is each meteor shower is named after where the meteors are going to appear to be radiating from in the night sky, or the radiant. And in this case, they're going to be looking to come from the direction of the constellation of Orion. And while that's where they're coming from, it's not necessarily where you need to look. And this is one of our biggest disadvantages, just being on your computer screen versus the giant planetarium dome, is that to show you a meteor shower, well, you really want to look at the whole night sky. You don't want to just look at a particular quadrant. If you have a picnic blanket, you have a lawn chair, if you can lay back and just look at as much of the sky as you possibly can, that's going to give you the best chance to see some shooting stars. So you really don't want a telescope for this one. While a telescope is helpful in most cases with astronomy, this is where it's going to hurt you. You want to get as big of a view of that night sky. And for this case, for the Orionids, we're going to be expecting maybe about 15 to 20 streaks at the peak. That's roughly translates to one every minute or so if you're in a really dark sky, which brings up another point. The darker your sky, the more you're going to see some of the dimmer streaks of light. As dark as you can get it, the less light pollution you have, the better off you're going to be in finding these shooting stars, which is great for us in Prescott. We have some pretty dark skies here. If you're by the Grand Canyon, it can get even better, but we're pretty good where we are. And so this meteor shower, like many, is best viewed in some of the hours of the early morning before the sun has risen, so in the early AM. I know that can be tough for a lot of people. The reason that they're best seen there is that's when the radiant, that Orion constellation, that's when it's beginning to rise. So where those meteors are coming from, it's getting higher up in your sky. And well, why do we always have these meteor showers like the Orionids, like the Geminids, like the Perseids at the same time every year? has to do with trash. Or comet trash, really. So there are these objects that are going through our solar system, things like comets, that leave trails of themselves behind. This gas and little pieces of ice, and so one of these comets, Halley in particular, Halley's comet, is the progenitor or the lever of the trash for the Orionid meteor shower. So that the stuff that Halley left behind sort of is hanging out in one part of Earth's orbit. So every year, Earth gets back to that point where Halley left all its stuff, or Halley left all its stuff, and that stuff ends up colliding with our atmosphere, and we see these streaks of light coming across our sky. It's why these meteor showers happen at the same time every year, because Earth hits the same trash heaps every time at each point in its orbit over the course of a year, and that's essentially what's bringing us our meteor showers. So we have a meteor shower coming up. We have a gorgeous blue full moon coming up. We have beautiful planets in our sky. Mars, in particular, is a treasure. We have these constellations with spooky deep sky objects hidden within. So there's a lot of stuff that you can explore in your night sky, and I encourage you to take advantage of all of it. This is the time when we're socially distanced to look up at some distant stars. And if you're looking for more astronomy content, well, we already have a modest catalog that we're building up on our YouTube channel here. We had a group of research presentations from Embry-Riddle students in the Astronomy and Space Physics program. That presentation is on our channel. You can see the video recording of it. There was also a science speaker series that we had where Dr. Emily Levesque was talking with Embry-Riddle's Dr. Noah Richardson all about some different experiences, some human experiences people can have when they're getting data for astronomy research, when they have these giant telescopes that are looking out at things. How do you get to those telescopes? What are some of the more human stories behind those research treks, those telescope runs, as it were? And so that's on our channel as well. There is a show that is educational, sort of aimed at children, about our planets in the solar system. That's available there. There's going to be another one coming up in November on the stars. So we're building up some digital content for you to view as you'd like, as you please, if it is something that fits your fancy. And of course, you have the whole universe and you have the stars available to you as well. But with all that being said, thank you again so much for coming to this monthly Night Sky series. We'll be back next month, and this one will disappear once that happens. But have a wonderful rest of your evening, and happy stargazing.